His badge hit my cleaning cart and spun like a coin before falling between the mop bucket and my lunch bag. Grant Stevenson didn't even slow down, just pointed toward the parking garage like I was a dog he'd trained to fetch. "Park it, janitor," he said, his voice carrying across the marble lobby. The echo made it worse, bouncing off the high ceiling so everyone could hear. The entire space went quiet in that awful way where people know something wrong just happened, but pretend they didn't notice. I stood there frozen for a second, my hand still gripping the handle of my cart. The security guard at the front desk, Carlos, I think his name was, looked up from his monitors. Our eyes met. He knew that wasn't okay. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his hand paused over his keyboard. But he did nothing, just dropped his gaze back to his screen like the interaction had never happened, like Grant hadn't just treated me like I was invisible, less than human, something to order around. My throat closed up. Heat crawled up my neck toward my face. Around me, the lobby slowly came back to life. People walking again, conversations resuming, the world moving on like nothing had happened. I looked up at the security guard's face one more time. He was still doing nothing. My throat tightened so hard it felt like I'd swallowed a stone. I bent down slowly and picked up Grant's badge from where it had landed next to my cleaning supplies. My thumb accidentally smudged the glossy photo, his face smiling smugly at the camera, the word executive printed in bold letters underneath his name. Grant turned back just long enough to smirk at me. He was enjoying this. The humiliation wasn't accidental or thoughtless, it was deliberate. A little treat he'd bought himself at my expense, performed in front of an audience. I straightened up, holding his badge carefully, trying to keep my hand from shaking. People were watching now, pretending not to, but definitely paying attention. A woman by the elevator bank had her phone out. A group of men in suits had paused their conversation. That's when Grant added the second blow. His voice was softer this time, but somehow crueler. "Try not to lose it," he said, his eyes scanning me up and down. "You people lose everything. You people." The words landed like a slap. My vision blurred at the edges, but I forced myself to stay calm, forced myself to breathe, forced the tears that were threatening to stay exactly where they were, unshed, invisible, giving him nothing. I held out his badge, my arm extended, my face arranged in a steady smile I absolutely did not feel. Grant took it without thanks, without acknowledgement, like I was a piece of furniture that had performed its function. My fingers only started trembling after he turned away. I gripped the cart handle to hide it, knuckles going white against the metal. Inside my head, something clicked into place. A decision forming before I even consciously made it. This moment would have a name. This humiliation would become a story, but not the story Grant thought he was telling. "Park it, janitor," he'd said. 72 hours later, he'd be begging for his badge back. I didn't know that for certain yet, but I felt it. A certainty settling in my bones that this wasn't over, that his arrogance had just started something he couldn't control. Grant walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against the marble floor. But as he passed my cart, he shoulder-checked it on purpose. Not hard enough to knock it over, but enough to make dirty mop water slosh over the edge of the bucket and onto my shoes. Cold, filthy water soaked through my sneakers. The smell of industrial cleaner and floor grime hit my nose. A few people actually gasped. The woman with the phone definitely caught it on video. I saw her screen angle shift. Grant didn't look back, just kept walking toward the elevators, his hand raising in a casual wave to someone across the lobby. Like nothing had happened, like I wasn't standing there with wet shoes and a racing heart. Carlos, the security guard, was watching me again. This time his expression looked almost sorry. "My name is Kelsey Hart. I'm a white American woman, 34 years old, and I supervise overnight facilities in this downtown office tower. That means I'm responsible for safety walkthroughs, access control incidents, vendor coordination, emergency protocols, and basically anything that could shut this building down if it gets ignored. People see the cleaning cart and the uniform and assume I'm invisible. Assume I don't matter. Assume I'm just the janitor who mops floors and empties trash cans while they're home sleeping. What they don't see is that I have security clearance for every floor. I have access to surveillance footage. I file incident reports that go directly to building management and the corporate risk department. I'm the person who documents safety violations, reports code breaches, and keeps this place from getting sued into oblivion. Grant Stevenson just treated me like I was beneath him. That assumption, that casual cruelty, was about to cost him everything. I pushed my cart toward the supply closet, my wet shoes squelching with every step. My mind was already working, cataloging, documenting. The time, 7:43 p.m. The location, main lobby. The witnesses, at least 15 people, including security guard Carlos Mendez. My radio crackled to life on my hip. "Kelsey, we had a door alarm on 14. Can you check it out?" The voice belonged to dispatch, night shift coordinator handling building alerts. I pressed the button. Copy. Heading up now. My voice came out steady, professional, betraying none of the anger still burning in my chest. I took the service elevator to the 14th floor, my wet shoes leaving faint prints on the metal floor. The elevator dinged, and I stepped out into the dimly lit hallway. Emergency lighting cast long shadows. Most offices up here were dark and empty at this hour. I followed the flashing red light down the corridor to the emergency exit. The door was propped wide open with a metal trash can wedged underneath it. Cold night air rushed in like the building was exhaling. The temperature difference made my skin prickle. A red alarm light flashed silently above the door handle. The system was triggered, but someone had muted the audible alert. This was a massive security breach. Anyone could walk in from the exterior fire escape, access the building, steal equipment. Worse, I pulled out my phone and took several photographs. The propped door, the angle of the trash can, the flashing alarm light, the view down the fire escape showing the accessibility from street level. Then I carefully removed the trash can and let the door close properly. The alarm light stopped flashing. I logged the incident in my tablet. Time, location, condition found, corrective action taken. That's when I noticed the sticky note stuck to the door bar. Crumpled yellow paper with writing in thick black marker. "Do not close. G.S. Grant Stevenson." I photographed the note before peeling it off carefully and placing it in a plastic evidence bag from my supply belt. Back downstairs, I pushed my cart past the main lobby seating area. Grant was there with 2 coworkers, all 3 of them laughing loudly. As I approached, I heard my name. And Kelsey almost cried, Grant was saying, demonstrating with exaggerated hand gestures. I thought she was going to break down right there. "You people are so sensitive." His friends laughed. One of them, a tall man in a gray suit, looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. The other one, a woman with perfect hair, laughed harder and touched Grant's arm. I walked past like I hadn't heard anything. My face stayed calm even though my stomach was churning. If I reacted, I'd become the story. The emotional janitor who couldn't take a joke. The oversensitive woman who made things awkward. But if I documented everything, Grant would become the problem. The pattern. The liability. I kept pushing my cart toward the storage area, my wet shoes still squelching quietly. Behind me, Grant's laughter echoed through the lobby. The receptionist, Miranda, who worked late shift on Tuesdays, caught my eye as I passed her desk. She leaned in and whispered quickly, "He's been doing stuff like this for months, to everyone, but especially to..." She trailed off, her eyes flicking toward my cleaning cart. "To people like me," I finished quietly. Miranda nodded, her expression sympathetic but also helpless. I thanked her and kept moving. Another piece of the puzzle. Another part of the pattern. Grant wasn't just cruel to me. This was systematic. I was at the coffee station refilling the industrial brewer when Carlos appeared beside me, the security guard from earlier. He didn't apologize, just stood there looking tired, older than his probably 40 years. "I saw what happened," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the coffee machine's gurgling. "Down in the lobby, with the badge." He paused, his jaw working like he was chewing on words he didn't want to say. "Grant's protected, by management, by the executives. Nobody touches him." I nodded slowly, pouring coffee grounds into the filter. "I understand." And I did. Every workplace had someone like Grant. Someone whose performance or connections made them untouchable, despite their behavior. Carlos shifted his weight, glancing around to make sure we were alone. Then he lowered his voice even more. "But if you're logging incidents, and I think you are, you should check the camera footage. You'll see a pattern. times when he does things he shouldn't. He pulled a scrap of paper from his pocket and slid it across the counter. A timestamp written in neat handwriting, yesterday, 7:18 p.m. What happened yesterday at 7:18? I asked. Carlos met my eyes. Check the footage. 4th floor secure entrance. You'll see. He picked up his coffee cup and walked away before I could ask anything else. I pocketed the paper and finished setting up the coffee maker. My hands were steady now. The anger had transformed into something colder, more focused. I had a timestamp. I had access to security footage. And I had a growing file of incidents all pointing to one person. In the basement security office, a small room filled with monitors and recording equipment, I sat down at the workstation and logged in with my credentials. My access level allowed me to review footage for incident reports and safety documentation. I pulled up yesterday's recordings and navigated to the 4th floor camera, the one covering the secure entrance to the finance department. Fast-forwarded to 7:15 p.m. and watched. At 7:18 exactly, an employee in business attire badge swiped through the door. Before it could close, Grant slipped in behind him, tailgating through a secure access point without using his own badge. The employee didn't notice or didn't care. Grant looked directly at the camera as he passed, but his expression showed zero concern. No guilt. No worry about being caught. He acted like security protocols were suggestions that didn't apply to him. I watched him walk to the door's interior side and wedge his shoe against it, propping it open. Then he disappeared down the hallway, leaving the secure door accessible to anyone. My stomach tightened. This was a serious violation, but I kept watching. 7 minutes later, Grant returned. He was carrying a boxed laptop under his arm, the kind IT kept in storage for new employee setups. He walked right past the camera and out the still propped door, letting it finally close behind him. No escort, no authorization visible. Just Grant walking out with company equipment like he owned the place. The next morning, I made my way to the IT department before my shift officially started. I found one of the overnight techs, a young guy named Wesley who I'd helped a few times with after-hours building access. "Hey Wesley," I said casually. "Quick question. Did Grant Stevenson have a pickup authorization yesterday for equipment? I'm just reconciling access logs." Wesley's eyes immediately flicked away from mine. He shifted in his chair, suddenly very interested in his keyboard. He said it was approved by his director, so He trailed off. "So you didn't verify the authorization?" I kept my tone neutral, not accusatory. Wesley's face flushed. "Grant's an executive. He doesn't really wait for processes, you know? And nobody wants to be the person who tells him no." Wesley looked miserable, knowing how bad this sounded. I nodded understandingly. "I get it. Thanks for clarifying." That was the whole problem, right there. People stopped asking questions when someone was loud enough, important enough, intimidating enough. My phone pinged with a new email as I walked away. I pulled it out and read the subject line, "Unscheduled vendor delivery, dock access requested." I clicked it open. A delivery driver was at the loading dock asking for building access. No work order number. No scheduled appointment. Just a claim that Grant Stevenson authorized it. I changed direction and headed for the loading dock, my pulse quickening. Grant was establishing a pattern of using his name as a crowbar to bypass every security protocol in the building. At the loading dock, a delivery driver stood looking confused and slightly annoyed. He was middle-aged, holding a clipboard, his truck idling in the bay behind him. "You the facilities manager?" he asked when I approached. I nodded. He thrust the clipboard toward me. "I got a call 2 hours ago about a pickup. Grant Stevenson said to meet him here, said I'd be cleared for access to the 12th floor." I scanned the paperwork. No work order number, no vendor badge registration, no building escort assignment, just Grant's name and a phone number. "I'm sorry, but I can't authorize dock access without proper documentation. Building policy requires a work order and registered vendor credentials." The driver's face reddened. "I drove 40 minutes to get here. Stevenson said this was all set up." I kept my voice calm and professional. "I understand, and I apologize for the confusion, but security protocols exist for everyone's protection. If Mr. Stevenson needs a delivery, he'll need to submit it through proper channels." The driver muttered something under his breath but climbed back into his truck. I logged the attempted breach in my tablet. Unauthorized vendor access attempt, citing Grant Stevenson as authorization, access denied per policy. My radio crackled before I'd even left the loading dock. Dispatch's voice came through tight and stressed. Kelsey, we have a situation. Grant Stevenson is on 12, yelling about a blocked delivery. He's demanding to speak to whoever denied dock access. I pressed the button calmly. Copy, I'll handle it. But my heart was racing now. This was about to get ugly. I took the elevator to the 12th floor. The doors opened and Grant was there, standing in the hallway like he'd been waiting for me. His face was red, a vein visible in his temple. Do you know who I am? He barked, pointing at my cart like it was evidence of my inferiority. His voice carried down the hallway. People appeared in cubicle openings, watching but pretending to work. I kept my voice even and professional. Mr. Stevenson, vendor access requires a work order and registered credentials. The delivery you scheduled didn't have either. I was following building security protocol. Grant took a step closer. Too close. Invading my personal space in a way that made several watching employees shift uncomfortably. I don't have time for protocols. That was an important delivery. You just cost me money. I can help you submit the proper paperwork for next time, I offered calmly. My hands wanted to shake, but I kept them steady on my cart handle. Grant's smile turned sharp, dangerous. You won't get a next time. I'm calling your supervisor right now. By lunch, you won't have a job. He pulled out his phone and started dialing, maintaining eye contact with me like it was a threat. Around us, people were definitely watching now. Some looked sympathetic, others looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. One woman met my eyes and gave a tiny shake of her head, a warning. Grant pressed his phone to his ear, still staring at me. Yeah, I need to file a complaint against one of your facilities people. I retreated to the supply closet on the 8th floor, the one I used as an unofficial office during night shifts. My hands were shaking now that I was alone. I gripped the metal shelf until the trembling stopped, forcing myself to breathe slowly. This job was everything. My rent, my health insurance, my car payment, it all depended on this paycheck. I wasn't rich. I wasn't connected. I didn't have family money or backup plans. If Grant actually got me fired, I'd be in serious trouble. The panic rose in my throat, and I pushed it back down. Emotion wouldn't help. Documentation would. Truth would. I pulled out my phone and started reviewing everything I'd collected. Photos of the prop door with Grant's note, footage of him tailgating through security, the unauthorized equipment removal, the vendor access attempt. Each incident alone might seem small. Together, they painted a picture. My phone rang, the vibration nearly making me drop it. My supervisor's name flashed on screen. Angela Reeves, facilities director, my direct boss. I answered with a steady voice. This is Kelsey. Kelsey, I need to talk to you about a complaint I just received. Angela's voice was careful, measured. Not angry, which somehow made it worse. Anger I could fight. This careful neutrality meant she was weighing options. Grant Stevenson called. He's claiming you were hostile and prevented a necessary business delivery, that you were disrespectful and overstepped your authority. Each accusation landed like a small stone in my stomach. I took a breath before responding. Angela, I followed security protocol. Grant tried to authorize vendor access without proper documentation. I denied it per building policy and offered to help him submit the correct paperwork. Silence on the other end of the line. I could hear Angela thinking, calculating. Finally, she spoke. Kelsey, Grant Stevenson has a lot of influence in this building. He generates significant revenue for the company. I need you to be very careful here. The warning was clear. Be careful meant don't make waves. It meant Grant mattered more than I did, more than protocol, more than what was right. I understand, I said quietly, then added, I have documentation, photos, access logs, security footage. Everything I did was by the book. Everything he's doing violates multiple policies. Another pause, longer this time. When Angela spoke again, her voice had changed slightly. Less warning, more curiosity. What kind of violations? I took a chance. Propping emergency exits open, tailgating through secure access points, unauthorized equipment removal, using his position to bypass safety protocols. All documented with dates, times, and evidence. Send them, Angela said. All of them. Everything you have. The line went quiet for a moment, then she added in a voice that was almost a whisper, "And Kelsey, be very, very careful. If you're going to do this, make sure everything is airtight. No emotions, no opinions, just facts." I understood. She was giving me permission to build a case, but she was also telling me I'd only get one shot. If my documentation wasn't perfect, Grant would crush me. "I'll send everything within the hour," I said. I spent the next hour building the most organized professional documentation package I'd ever created. No adjectives like cruel or arrogant. No emotional language. Just clean, factual timeline entries. 7:43 p.m. Tuesday. Subject threw badge at facilities staff in main lobby. Witnessed by 15+ people including security. Subject made demeaning comments. Photo evidence and witness statements attached. 9:17 p.m. Tuesday. Emergency exit on floor 14 found propped open with note signed GS. Security breach documented. Note photographed and preserved as evidence. 7:18 p.m. Monday. Security footage shows subject tailgating through secure access without proper badge protocol. Subject then removed equipment without visible authorization. Video timestamp attached. 11:32 a.m. Wednesday. Subject attempted to authorize unauthorized vendor delivery without work order or security clearance. Access properly denied per protocol. Delivery documentation attached. Each entry had supporting evidence. Photos, video timestamps, access logs, witness names, everything cross-referenced and dated. As I was attaching the final files, I noticed something. I pulled up the calendar and plotted all the incidents on a timeline. They weren't random. They all clustered around the same area of the building. The executive suite on the 19th floor. I added a note to my documentation. Pattern suggests repeated access to executive floor during incidents. Recommend review of 19th floor security logs. I hit send to Angela, copying building security and keeping a backup in my personal encrypted storage. The moment the email left my outbox, there was no going back. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from Carlos, the security guard. "Check your email, sent you something important." Carlos had forwarded me camera footage from the 19th floor, the executive suite. His message was brief. "Thought you should see this," from last week. I opened the video file on my tablet. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. last Thursday, well after business hours. The camera covered the hallway outside the executive offices, including the recycling and document disposal area. Grant appeared on screen, looking around to check if anyone was watching. Then he opened the secure document disposal bin, the one meant for shredded confidential materials, and started dumping regular papers inside. Not shredded, just loose pages. I zoomed in on the video. The papers were clearly visible. Client lists, financial projections, internal strategy documents. Confidential information that was supposed to be properly destroyed, not just tossed in a recycling bin where anyone could access it. This was worse than being rude or bypassing security. This was a data breach, a violation that could cost the company millions in lawsuits and regulatory fines. I did my routine walkthrough of the 19th floor that night, documenting everything with fresh eyes. Sure enough, the confidential recycling bin contained loose papers with sensitive client information. Names, account numbers, financial projections, all improperly disposed. I photographed everything without reading the details more than necessary. Then I sealed the bin with evidence tape and logged it as a critical security incident requiring immediate review. As I was finishing the documentation, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to find Grant standing in the hallway, his arms crossed. "Snooping again?" His voice was cold, dangerous. Grant stepped closer, invading my personal space the same way he had earlier. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back slightly to maintain eye contact. Close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne mixing with the sharp scent of whatever he'd had for dinner. He looked down at my name badge, his eyes lingering on it before traveling back up to my face. A small smirk played at the corner of his mouth. "Kelsey," he said slowly, drawing out my name like he was tasting it. "You're really committed to pretending you matter, aren't you?" I kept my face neutral even though my heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to step back, create distance, escape the confrontation. But I didn't move, didn't give him the satisfaction. "I'm doing my job," I said evenly. "Facilities management, safety protocols, You know, the boring stuff that keeps buildings running. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. Grant's smirk widened. He reached out slowly, deliberately, and tapped my name badge with his index finger. The gesture was small, almost playful, but it felt like a violation. A reminder that he could touch me, my belongings, my space, and there was nothing I could do about it. "That's cute," he said. "The janitor thinks she has authority." He tapped the badge again, harder this time. The plastic scraped against my shirt. Around us, the hallway was empty. No witnesses, no cameras in this particular blind spot. Grant had chosen his location carefully. I didn't raise my voice, didn't threaten or escalate. I just said one sentence, evenly and clearly, "Do not touch me again." Grant's smile flickered. Just for a second, surprise flashed across his face, like he genuinely hadn't expected me to set a boundary. Like the idea that I might push back had never occurred to him. He recovered quickly, laughing to cover the moment. But his eyes had changed. They were colder now, calculating. "Or what?" he asked, his tone mocking. "You'll file a report? Tell your supervisor?" "I'll document it," I said simply. "Like I document everything else." I held his gaze, refusing to look away first. The hallway felt airless. Tension stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. Finally, Grant stepped back, his hands raised in mock surrender. "Relax, I'm just messing with you. You really need to lighten up." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing down the empty corridor. But before he disappeared around the corner, he called back over his shoulder, his voice casual and cruel. "Tomorrow, you won't even be here." I stood there alone in the hallway, my badge still warm where his finger had pressed against it. My hands were shaking again. I pulled out my phone and added the interaction to my incident log. Time, location, exact words, physical contact, threat made. Then I sent a brief email to Angela. "Grant Stevenson made physical contact and verbal threat. Documented. Need to discuss safety concerns." Her response came within minutes. "Come see me first thing in the morning." The next morning, I was called to HR before my shift even officially started. The message was vague. "Please report to Human Resources at 8 a.m. regarding a workplace matter." My stomach dropped. This was it. Grant had made good on his threat. I walked into the HR office at exactly 8 o'clock, my documentation folder clutched in my hand. Two people waited inside. Miranda Chen from HR and her supervisor, an older woman named Patricia Owens. Their expressions were carefully neutral, the kind of professional blankness that could mean anything. "Kelsey, thank you for coming in," Patricia said, gesturing to a chair. "We need to discuss a serious allegation that was filed against you yesterday evening." She slid a printed document across the table, a formal complaint signed by Grant Stevenson. I scanned it quickly, my mouth going dry. The allegation: I had stolen Grant's badge in the lobby and impersonated security personnel by questioning his building access. According to the complaint, I'd been harassing him for days, interfering with his work, and creating a hostile environment. It was so absurd it almost worked. Because absurd lies confuse people. They make you defensive. They turn reality upside down. "These are serious accusations," Miranda said carefully. "Badge theft and impersonation could be criminal matters." Patricia slid another piece of paper across the table. "We also received this." It was a printed photo, a screenshot showing me holding Grant's badge in the lobby. The angle made it look like I'd taken it, not caught it. I inhaled slowly, fighting the urge to panic. My brain was screaming, but my voice stayed calm. "Can I see the timestamp on that photo?" Patricia pointed to the corner. "Tuesday, 7:43 p.m. Why? Because that's when Grant threw his badge at me in the lobby. That screenshot is taken out of context." I pulled out my own tablet and navigated to the building's security footage archive. "May I show you the full video?" Miranda and Patricia exchanged glances. Patricia nodded. "Please." I pulled up the lobby camera footage from Tuesday at 7:43 p.m. and pressed play. On the screen, Grant appeared walking toward the entrance. He pulled his badge from his pocket, saw me with my cleaning cart, and threw it at me without breaking stride. You could see it spinning through the air, see me catching it reflexively, see Grant pointing toward the garage. Even without audio, the body language told the story. Then the audio kicked in. "Park it, janitor." Grant's voice came through clearly, The timestamp matched the screenshot exactly, but the screenshot had been cropped to show only the moment I held the badge, removing all context. The room went silent, the kind of delicious, terrifying silence that comes when truth lands hard. I let the video continue playing, showed me handing the badge back, showed Grant shoulder-checking my cart, showed dirty water splashing onto my shoes. Patricia's eyes lifted from the screen to look at me, then at the complaint letter, then back at the screen. Who provided that screenshot to Mr. Stevenson? Miranda was already typing on her computer. It would have to be someone with security access. Let me check the audit logs. Miranda's fingers flew across her keyboard. The screenshot was pulled from our system at 6:47 p.m. yesterday. User ID? She paused, her eyes widening slightly. Diane Mercer, facility liaison. Patricia sat back in her chair, her expression hardening. Diane pulled this footage and gave it to Grant as a complaint tool? She looked at me. What else do you have documented? I opened my folder. 14 separate incidents over the past week. Emergency exits propped open. Secure access violations. Unauthorized equipment removal. Improper disposal of confidential documents. All involving Grant Stevenson. I laid out the evidence piece by piece. The sticky note signed GS. The security footage of tailgating and equipment theft. The vendor access attempts. The confidential papers in the recycling bin. Everything time-stamped, photographed, cross-referenced. Patricia's face grew more serious with each piece of evidence. She picked up her desk phone and pressed a button. Get me Security Director Ramon Torres. Immediately. While we waited, Miranda pulled up access logs. IT pulled equipment sign-out sheets. Facilities pulled door alarm records. What had started as Grant's attempt to get me fired was rapidly becoming a comprehensive compliance review. Ramon arrived within 10 minutes, a stocky man with gray hair and sharp eyes. Patricia showed him everything. He watched the lobby footage, reviewed the security breaches. His jaw tightened with each violation. This isn't just harassment, Ramon said quietly. This is systematic security failure. How long has this been going on? Patricia looked at him. According to these logs, at least 6 months, probably longer. Ramon stood. We need to involve corporate risk management. These violations could cost us our insurance coverage. The security office became a war room. Ramon pulled up 6 months of access logs, door alarms, and camera footage. Every incident flagged, every pattern documented. My small file of Grant's behavior had opened a Pandora's box of security failures. 14 propped doors, Ramon muttered, scrolling through alarm logs. 23 tailgating incidents, unauthorized after-hours access on 12 different occasions. He looked at Patricia. How did this get missed? Because nobody was looking, Patricia said grimly. Or someone was actively covering it up. That's when Diane Mercer stormed into the security office, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. She was furious, her face flushed red. What is going on here? I've been getting calls about access reviews and investigation protocols. Diane was mid-50s, impeccably dressed, and completely convinced of her own authority. She'd been facility liaison for 8 years, the connection between building management and executive operations. Ramon, what is this nonsense? She demanded. Grant Stevenson is our top producer. He generates millions in revenue. This is a complete waste of company resources. She turned and saw me standing near the door, her expression twisted with disgust. This is because of you and your petty complaints. She pointed at me like I was something dirty. Go back to cleaning toilets. That's all you're good for. Ramon's voice cut through the room like a knife. Ms. Mercer, you need to stop talking right now. His tone was flat, dangerous. Diane whirled on him. Excuse me, you pulled security footage and provided it to an employee for use in a false complaint, Ramon said. That's a violation of at least 3 company policies. You don't get to silence reporting parties. Diane's face went from red to pale in seconds. Grant needed evidence for his complaint. She was harassing him. Her voice had lost its confident edge. Show me the harassment, Ramon said, pulling up my incident logs. Because what I see is documented safety violations, all properly reported through appropriate channels. What I don't see is any evidence of harassment. Patricia stepped forward. Diane, did you know about Grant's security violations? The question hung in the air. Diane's mouth opened and closed. He's an executive. Sometimes protocols need to be flexible. Flexible, Ramon repeated. You mean ignored? You knew he was propping doors open, tailgating through secure access? Diane's silence was answer enough. Ramon pulled up his phone and made a call. This is Taurus. I need corporate risk management on site immediately. We have a pattern of security violations and potential cover-up by facility liaison. He paused. Yes, I understand it's short notice. This is an emergency. He hung up and looked at Patricia. Corporate is sending a team. They'll be here by end of business today. We're looking at a full 72-hour compliance review. That's when I understood. This wasn't about revenge or justice in some dramatic sense. This was protocol. Pure, boring, necessary protocol. Grant had created so many violations that the building's insurance carrier required documented corrective action. The investigation was mandatory. The clock had started. 72 hours to complete the review, document every violation, and implement corrective action. And Grant's access, all executive access actually, would be suspended until the review was complete. I heard the words that changed everything. We're issuing immediate access suspensions pending investigation completion. Monday morning, I watched from my position near the coffee station as Grant strode into the building. He looked confident, relaxed, like the weekend had erased any concern about Friday's events. He walked to the turnstiles where employees badge in for building access, pulled out his badge and tapped it against the reader with practiced casualness. The light flashed red. A harsh beep echoed across the lobby. Grant frowned and tapped again. Same red light, same beep. He tried a third time, pressing the badge harder against the reader like force would somehow override the system. People were starting to notice. Morning commuters paused to watch. The lobby security guard stepped forward. Sir, your access has been suspended. You'll need to check with HR. Grant's face flushed. That's ridiculous. There's been some mistake. I'm an executive here. He tried his badge again. Red light. Beep. More people were watching now. Phones coming out. Someone definitely recording. Grant's jaw clenched as he realized he was creating a scene. He spun around, scanning the lobby, and his eyes locked on mine. For a moment, pure panic flashed behind his anger. He knew. He understood that this was real, that his usual bluster and connections weren't going to fix it. Carlos, the security guard, appeared at his elbow. Mr. Stevenson, I need you to come with me, please. HR and building security need to speak with you. Grant's hands were shaking slightly. This is insane. Do you know who I am? Grant was escorted into a glass-walled conference room on the main floor. Through the windows, I could see him sitting across from Patricia from HR and Ramon from security. His body language was completely different now. Hands out, palms up, pleading. Gone was the man who'd thrown his badge at me, who'd invaded my space, who'd acted like rules were decorations that didn't apply to him. This Grant was shrinking, bargaining, desperately trying to regain control of a situation that had slipped away from him. Diane Mercer arrived, rushing in like she could bulldoze the meeting back in Grant's favor. She'd always protected him before. But this time, Ramon handed her a printed packet of documents with her name highlighted throughout. I watched Diane's face drain of color as she read. Her own emails approving Grant's flexible interpretations of security protocols. Her authorization for after-hours access despite policy violations. Her pulling of security footage to help him file a false complaint. She tried to speak, to defend herself, but Patricia raised a hand. The conversation continued without her. Diane sat down heavily in an empty chair, her usual confidence completely deflated. After 45 minutes, the HR representative stood and opened the conference room door. Her voice carried across the lobby. Mr. Stevenson, you need to surrender your badge and building access credentials. Grant's face went from red to white. You can't. I have projects, clients. You can't just lock me out. His voice was rising, cracking slightly at the edges. The investigation found multiple serious violations, Patricia said calmly. Access suspension is mandatory pending resolution. I watched from my position by the facilities desk as Grant left the building carrying a small cardboard box, his personal items from his desk, a photo frame, a coffee mug, some papers. His eyes were fixed on the floor like it might swallow him whole. People stared as he passed. Some looked sympathetic. Most looked relieved, like a pressure that had been crushing them had suddenly lifted. Grant had ruled through fear and intimidation. Now that protection was gone. Diane was escorted out an hour later. She'd been removed from facility oversight for interfering with a security investigation. Her role terminated pending corporate review of her involvement in the cover-up. The building implemented new access protocols within the week. Stricter badge controls. Mandatory security training for all executives. Regular compliance audits. Rules that protected everyone, especially the people nobody had bothered to respect before. Angela, my supervisor, called me into her office on Wednesday. Corporate wants to offer you a new position, facilities compliance lead, day shift, better pay. You'd be responsible for monitoring safety protocols and security adherence across all our downtown properties. I stared at her. Really? Angela smiled. Really, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. Documented everything. Stayed professional. Let the system work. That's exactly the kind of person we need in compliance. 3 weeks later, I started my new position. My uniform changed from cleaning crew to business casual. My desk was in the main office, not a supply closet. My reports went directly to corporate. I don't feel petty or vindictive about what happened. I feel clean, like someone finally opened a window in a room that had been stale for years, letting fresh air chase out the toxic atmosphere. Grant tried to humiliate me into silence, tried to use his position and connections to make me invisible, unimportant, beneath notice. He thought throwing his badge at me would put me in my place. Instead, I documented the truth, stood my ground, and let his own arrogance do the collapsing for him. 72 hours. That's all it took for the system to catch up with someone who thought rules didn't apply to him. For consequences to find someone who'd avoided them through intimidation and protection. I learned something important. You don't have to explode to win. You don't have to match cruelty with cruelty or fight dirty to come out ahead. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay steady, document everything, and trust that the truth, boring, procedural, bureaucratic truth, is stronger than anyone's badge, title, or expensive cologne. Park it, janitor, he'd said. 72 hours later, he was begging for his badge back, and I was the one who got to walk through the front door every morning with my head held high.